Welcome back to the night show. I'm your host, David07. Pitt, you're on.
Oh, I am. Hi. Hi, everyone.
Okay, so now we're gonna continue our reading of Christianity. And like I said, this is not gonna be a regular thing, but anyhow, let's do this. So last we did was on his troubles with the law. Alright, apparently his parents are no different.
What's his? I guess his parents are criminals too, but
Not exactly criminals, but just whatever, People who just don't understand or care. All right, so Chris's parents-in-law. It's not hard to figure out why Chris thinks the law should serve him and him alone. His parents too have the same problem. When Chris was thrown out of the Cub Scouts after an unknown incident, his parents attempted to sue Boy Scouts of America for discrimination. Whatever.
okay.
When Chris threw a tantrum that required him to be restrained, Bob attempted to sue the school for restraining him. Okay?
Continue.
When Mims and Lucas took a picture of Chris and uploaded it to the internet, Chris's parents threatened them with legal action, but as usual, never followed through. When Snorlax thought he had indigestion, she acted like she was going to sue the Chinese establishment the food came from. When it turned out to be colitis, she dropped the subject. When Barb and Bob had their absurd case against Greene County used it against them, their first reaction was to run onto another county. When Alec called the Chandler household posing as the game place employee Matthew Noble, Bob and Barb claimed that taking pictures of somebody without their knowledge or consent was not illegal. This came after threatening to sue Mims and Lucas for doing exactly that. During the same call, Bob will not contents the idea that an individual can be prohibited from private property, saying it's a business place, which has no bearing on private property laws. On October 28th, 2011, Bob was arrested for not only fleeing the scene of an accident, but also felony assault on a police officer. An extremely foolish crime that a remotely sensible person would never commit due to the serious consequences attached to it. Mandatory minimum of 6 months imprisonment on conviction. However, the recent death of her husband, her age, her bad health, her hopelessness, dependent clod of a son, seemed to have helped elect her some clemency. On July 10, 2012, Bob was arraigned in court for participation in the 28th October 28, 2011 incident. She was sentenced to community service and served 2-year probation.
His whole family sounds like trouble.
Yeah. On February 19, 2016, Barb was sued by Discover Bank for an unpaid debt. Judgment said that she owed $4,706.93 and $56 in court costs. On August 4th, 2016, Barb was sued by Capital One Bank for the same reason. She owed $15,906.99 plus $56 in court costs. And oh, here we go. Chris's original and official laws. Chris believes that police in real life are corrupt and sees them in the same light he sees the jerk cops in his comic. However, the jerk cops act as a stand-in for police who wronged him and are portrayed as being imposters with no legal authority, probably indicating that Chris does not recognize real policemen as legitimate authority. In the light of these things, Chris has a spin on the law. The penalties for drinking and smoking and internet harassment involve physical violence, including a kick in the teeth, which Chris inexplicably portrays as a punch in the first and only of his supposed series of Q&A videos. On December 31st, 2009, Chris orated about the law he wanted to be made to prevent Jack Thaddeus from using his MySpace for the ad space he paid for. And this is a quote from him. I have the instinct, and I have already snail mailed President Obama on how the sort of bad advertisement is going on and how it is wrong and should be made illegal. On how if the main captain does not want or is offended with the listed ads within his own website or works, regardless of who controls the ad space, would remove those ads or face jail time, and the FBI would be fully involved in all this. And they have the power, tools, and balls. To seek, hunt down, and bring in the individual internet trolls and ad spammers. Chris. What makes him think that any politician's going to listen to him?
I don't know. I mean, considering how things are nowadays, anything's possible.
Trust me, I think even the dumbest of politicians wouldn't even care what he had to say. As one can see, Chris is seeking the direct intervention of the president of his country and beseeching him to allow advertisements he doesn't like. Aside from the fact that Obama himself couldn't have done anything about this, the fact that Chris was mandated by law to display the ads. Jack paid to display. Chris should have written to his congressman about this rather than the president. But either way, he would have received no response response. Oh my gosh. The attitude is also reflected in his relationship with Mary Lee Walsh more than a decade ago. She put a stop to Chris soliciting sex on her campus. War ensued, and Chris received a well-deserved timeout for his behavior. 6 years later, in 2009, Chris decided it was time to make peace. He went to her office and left her a framed hand-drawn apology on her doorstep out of the blue. Her reaction was to file a trespassing notice. Chris disastrously believed that he didn't read the letter and returned it to the sender. He wasn't liable for it. Thankfully, Chris did not trespass again. Mailbag 55 posts a few more original laws. One, that it should be illegal for men to ever show their bare chest because according to Chris, no one in the entire world wants to see a man's bare chest. And presuming disregarding women, gay men, and boxing enthusiasts. And two,
Hey, that's awfully specific. I mean, hey, well, we'd be seeing a ton of women with no shirts on there, so I guess that's a bonus.
You can be so preferred. And two, he wants to force all women in any kind of relationship to wear rings, purely for his benefit, of course, thus defending all symbolism and significance of them. Whatever, that one's dumb. All I'll say is, I'm not really into rings, are you?
I don't know, but I don't know for myself.
Look, the thing is, I'm not really into them.
I mean, if I had to give one as a wedding present, though, then yeah, I would.
Yeah, if I had to, and I know eventually I'm probably gonna have to wear a wedding band, but I'm gonna find one that would specifically be my taste, you know?
I don't know. Any of us gonna end up going to a wedding? Or any of us gonna? I wonder.
Any of us going to a wedding, if any of us go to a wedding, you know, it's inevitable. I've been to a couple myself.
Okay, I'm talking about specifically.
I don't know, but
because I've even been to a friend's wedding or anything, I've just not been to any.
Most of the weddings I've been to have been family.
You can argue that marriage is overrated anyway.
Whatever. That's not something we really need to discuss here, is it?
We'll discuss some stuff like that some other time.
Yeah, we'll discuss it in the privacy of our own home. All right, back. We're getting off topic here. In the aftermath of distancing himself from the internet, Chris began to formulate a new bill for anti-online bad-mouthing. Starting this was his second flip note, "Don't get trolled." The details are unknown, but Chris essentially wants to make it so that online no one can speak negatively of anybody under the threat of prosecution. And there do exist laws against cybercrime and online harassment, but these laws vary by country and concern rather more serious deeds than drawing Rosa Chu with a. I'm not gonna say the word. I'm just gonna say what the proper word is: penis. And even so, even if Chris's law were somehow implemented federally, only his fellow U.S. residents would be held accountable. Chris is failing to comprehend that people besides Americans use the internet, or worse, assuming the entire world can be held to the USA's laws.
It sounds like this guy has delusions of grandeur or something like that.
Yeah, the problem is that, like I said, he's high functioning autistic, but like we're both that too, and he's a little lower on the spectrum. He's a little more lower on the spectrum than we are.
All right. I mean, considering how insane he is.
And the fact that he fails to comprehend, I think a lot of the stuff he does, he just doesn't understand. And even if he does understand, he just doesn't care. But it's all right. In Quickville, during the Idea Guy saga, Chris was told that Jamsta Sonichu had been put on trial for. All right. If any of you find these types of things disturbing, I think you should click off now at this point.
Oh boy, we're gonna be hearing some disturbing stuff.
On trial for molesting Punchy, Chris didn't want Jamsta to suffer in jail as he had, so he tried using his psychic powers to talk to the Quickville judge to convince him to release Jamsta, regardless of the crime he had committed. The problem with that is, it's just what. Well, why am I taking it seriously? Why am I trying to put logic into it? This is all fictionalized. Maybe real in his head, but it's fiction. The Idea guys informed him that the judge was unconvinced since Chris was no longer mayor. So Chris then turned his attention to the jurors. This worked, but sparked a citywide riot. Even in real life, not every verdict ends in disaster like that.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, come on now, a citywide riot. What kind of freaking verdict does that have to be?
Was there a riot when Casey Anthony escaped justice? No, there wasn't.
Yeah, I honestly have no idea.
Yeah, but screw Casey Anthony. In fact, why am I even talking about her? in the comic, the law, such as it is in the comics, is a horrifying total letar letarian. It's I can't pronounce that. Where anybody anywhere is subject to the whims of a dictator. And quick quote, Chris is mayor, Reed God King, and has banned many things in his city. Smoking or drinking alcohol, of course, would lead one to either be sentenced to 10 years in prison or a U.S. $1,500 fine. Okay.
Seems like he's really against substances.
Oh. Not even. I don't even think you could get. I don't even think a sentence was even that long during the Prohibition days.
Yeah, no kidding. So clearly he got something against all that.
Let me say, he changed a lot of his opinions later in his life, for better or worse reasons. Alright, that's fine, which Chris considers as an equally bad punishment. Quickville has its currency, despite being no more than a small city. And why fines are levied, or leved, whatever you say, how you say that, in U.S. dollars is unknown. Importing tobacco or alcohol incurs a greater punishment than murder or rape. However, it should be noted that Chris repealed the law against alcohol in June 2009. It's weird.
Okay, so at least you removed that. What about tobacco? Did you get rid of that next?
Oh, well, don't worry, we're not done yet. The Rosachus often congregate to protest, and I put that in quotes for whatever reason, for women's rights. These protests usually involve nudity and or pornography. Does that make sense to anybody? Actually, wait a minute. I just got that messed up. Okay, these protests usually involve that. Okay. I thought it was meaning that they basically get nude to promote women's rights or whatever.
I mean, no, it sounds like something that happened today.
They campaign for basic, archaic things like eligibility to vote, suggesting Chris or one of his predecessors has imposed discriminating laws against women in Quickville. It's not clear whether or not Quickville is legally part of the U.S. and thus subject to its federal laws, as Chris characteristically sends mixed messages a lot. Some things are distinctly American, as aforementioned, the U.S. dollar fines, for instance, but Quickville has its currency and its own set of laws, the likes of which would never be permitted in a developed or even an undeveloped country. Even if Quickville were some sort of Vatican-like sovereign state, the only agreement that makes even the slightest amount of sense is that Quickville is just that, a sovereign state on U.S. soil. Chris doesn't seem to have thought this out, though, and believes the mayor of a town is legally entitled to act as an authoritarian dictator.
That's not exactly how things work.
It may have been that way a long time ago back in the Old West. And it was. Like, some mayors did become dictators on U.S. soil. As a mayor, Chris does nothing bureaucratic ever and makes his secretary, or is it sanctuary? Oh, secretary. Do all the paperwork as per his thoughts on women, while he goes off on another one of his sweetheart searches. He has mandated dating education classes for students so they can learn to go on dates and as well as know and as well as how to stay straight.
Dating education classes. What the heck? No, that's something entirely new.
What about social skills class? That's social.
I don't know. Does that count?
It can. I don't know. At least you're looking. But whatever. But whatever.
Social skills never actually teach social skills. I don't remember learning anything in those classes.
Yeah, most of them. I don't remember learning too much from those social skills, except just stuff that you learn when you're way younger than we were.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I did not like social skills class. It was absolutely just pathetic. Anyhow, dating education might be a real thing someday. Who knows? But whatever. Actual police officers do not appear until quite late in the series, and even then, they did nothing whatsoever, giving the impression that Chris and his Pokemon abominations are the only things standing between peace and violent anarchy. However, Sanchu number 9 seems to reveal that there are three sets of other protectors, a possibly nondescript police force, distinct from Merrily Wash's jerk ops, as well as his team of Power Rangers and a team of Transformers. You know how in those Transformer movies they say that, of course, they protect the world, right?
Yeah.
But let me just tell you, having to actually communicate with them, wouldn't you be scared to death of those things? They're like 100 feet tall.
Yeah, that would be pretty crazy. Talking to like a super tall robot.
Yeah, especially, like I said, some of them are over 100 feet tall. Especially Devastator. Have you ever seen Revenge of the Fallen?
I have indeed. I mean, well, that was like years ago, but I have indeed.
And yet, and considering that he has, and the fact that Michael Bay has a mentality of a seems to have the mentality of a middle schooler, and I'm not knocking Michael Bay at all. I really don't have an opinion on him. If he makes crap, he makes crap. If he makes something fun and good, he makes something fun and good. Whatever. Did you see how he actually had two wrecking balls as balls?
Okay, continue.
Whatever that. Anyhow, that was just a weird
Yeah, I
thing.
don't remember anything like that.
Yeah, it's probably been too long, but heck, I don't even remember seeing it until somebody pointed it out. All right. Anyhow, continue. Is Quickville under martial law? All right. In conversation with Jack Thaddeus, revealed that Chris revealed that Quickville is the home of a paramilitary force equipped with tanks, which he uses as a police force, and all his electric hedgehog Pokemon enjoy immunity from prosecution and are above the law. Can't see that backfiring in any way.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I can see that backfiring.
Add to this, and add this to the fact that Chris cannot be disposed as mayor. There is no elections. And the fact that the police and fleet of superpower goons obey anything Chris demands of them, it paints a very frightening picture. According to Chris,
That sounds like North Korea.
yeah, seemingly. According to Chris, Magic-chan, oh, here we go, mentally scans the city perimeters for any sexual acts and reports any homosexual activity to the authorities. What is this, the Dark Ages now?
Yeah, it's a freaking Dark Ages. It's like the gay people.
The participants are then tried and fined heavily. $500. Not to say anything, but $500 for a real crime sounds pretty low. What do you think?
I think if a crime this guy has on his list is just basic things like hand holding and stuff, though, it sounds like.
but anyhow, I'm not saying I agree with this dumb thing, but whatever.
I mean, maybe it should be a crime, though, and make it so you no longer see couples involved. Like,
Yeah, I actually remember in Back to the Future, the game, something got messed up, and now Hill Valley, California, is basically a police state. And in public display of affection is illegal. Also, if you guys haven't played Back to the Future game, check it out. It's a decent point and click game. All right, or 50 hours of community service. Apparently in Quickville, the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution does not apply in matters of personal sexual choice. And neither does the U.S. Supreme Court ruling finding sodomy laws to be unconstitutional. Yeah, this guy technically portrays it as like a dictatorship. I can't say which kind of dictatorship, though. Even though Chris's deranged laws only exist only within his city, state, country, whatever, Quickville, he extracts his deranged fury onto people, whether they're actually in his jurisdiction or not. Sonnet number 10 shows 4 distinct crimes committed outside of Quickville. The destruction of the 4-cent garbage building. I wonder why. Gee, I wonder why it's called that. Because I don't know.
No idea either.
The murder of over 100 alleged trolls in said destruction, breaking and entering and destroying internet files and property. There was no evidence to suggest that this act of mass murder was even investigated by the authorities. And the comics portray the act of terrorism as Chris and his goons heroically defeating a gang of criminals. Chris may be able to murder without being reprimanded, but of course, this doesn't apply to everyone. Following the death of Samanla, I have no idea. The culprits, Alec, Mayo, Sean, and Evan, are subjected to a show trial and given no defense attorney by the state, violating the Sixth Amendment, forcing Sean to act as their
It's getting close to time for me to head back.
All right. I got an idea. How about if we continue this in a few hours, and I'll just edit these together.
Okay, I thought you were going to bed early,
I don't. I can work something out.
I mean, we can always just do it another day if you want.
All right, we'll do this tomorrow.
Yeah, considering you do have to get up early.
All right. So anyhow, hope you all enjoy the show today. Have a good night.
Goodbye.